It is 4:30 a.m. in the dead of winter, 1865. The frost on the Yorkshire moors crunches beneath your hobnail boots as you walk the 2 miles from your cramped, damp cottage to the colliery. The sky above is a bruised, starless black, but that hardly matters to you. For the next 14 hours, the sun will not exist. Today we are leaving the polished marble floors of the aristocracy and descending into the belly of the beast. We are stripping away the myths of the Gilded Age to expose the pitch-black, suffocating reality of the Victorian coal miner. By the end of this journey, you will have to ask yourself, in a world where the very air you breathe is toxic, where the earth above wants to crush you, and where your life is worth less than the rocks you dig, how long would you survive before the darkness consumed you? Your day begins at the pithead. The noise is deafening. The mechanical roar of the steam-powered winding engine, the shouting of the banksman, the clatter of iron tubs. But beneath the noise, there is a distinct metallic smell of sulfur and wet earth that clings to everything. You step into the cage, an open-sided iron box dangling over a shaft that drops over 1,000 feet straight down into the crust of the earth. You are crammed in with 6 other men, shoulder to shoulder, entirely silent. There is no safety harness. There are no guardrails. The rule of the drop. Once the cage begins its descent, you do not move. A sudden shift in weight, a moment of panic, or a stray elbow could send you tumbling out of the open sides into the black abyss. The cage drops. It doesn't glide, it plummets. Your stomach leaps into your throat as the weak morning light vanishes instantly, swallowed by an absolute, impenetrable blackness. The air grows hot, heavy, and thick, with a fine, powdery dust that immediately coats the back of your throat. Water drips down the shaft walls, cold and acidic, splashing against your face. When the cage finally slams into the bottom of the pit, your knees buckle from the impact, but you don't fall. You can't. The real nightmare hasn't even begun. To understand why you are willingly walking into a subterranean hell, you have to understand the layout of a Victorian coal mine. It is not a sprawling, cavernous cave. It is a suffocating labyrinth of narrow tunnels, expanding outward from the main shaft like the veins of a diseased lung. You leave the relatively spacious pit bottom and begin your walk to the coal face. For the first mile, the tunnel is high enough for you to walk upright. Then the ceiling drops to 5 feet. You hunch over. Another half-mile, and the ceiling drops to 4 feet. You bend at the waist, your spine aching in a permanent arc. By the time you reach your designated work area, known as a heading, the coal seam is exactly 30 inches high. You do not stand at the coal face. You will not stand for the next 12 hours. You strip off your shirt. The temperature down here, trapped beneath thousands of tons of rock, hovers around a stifling, humid 85 degrees Fahrenheit. You are a hewer, the highest-ranking and most physically demanded laborer in the mine. Your job is to extract the coal from the solid wall of the seam. You lie on your right side in a pool of stagnant black water. Your left shoulder presses against the low roof of the tunnel. Your right hip digs into the jagged slate floor. With a short-handled pickaxe, you begin to strike the bottom of the coal face, undercutting the seam. Swing, crack, swing, crack. You do this in a space so tight that if you raise your head an inch too far, your skull grinds against the jagged stone ceiling. Every muscle in your chest, back, and arms burns with an agonizing lactic fire. You are inhaling massive quantities of coal dust with every ragged breath. This dust coats your lungs, slowly turning them hard and black, a condition known as pneumoconiosis, or black lung. But in 1865, the mining companies don't consider this a disease. They consider the chronic, bloody coughing simply a natural trait of the miner. After an hour of undercutting, you drive wooden wedges into the top of the seam and smash them with a sledgehammer. The coal groans, fractures, and collapses in a terrifying rush of dust and debris, right where you were lying moments before. If you don't roll away fast enough, 100 pounds of solid rock will crush your legs. Once the coal is down, the putters arrive. The putters, These are often teenagers, boys as young as 14, whose job is to load the fallen coal into iron tubs and drag them through the 2-foot-high tunnels back to the main roadways. The harness. Because the tunnels are too low for ponies, the putters wear a leather belt around their waists, attached to a chain that runs between their legs. They crawl on their hands and knees in the dark, pulling carts that weigh over 600 pounds, their skin worn raw to the bone by the friction of the harness. As a putter drags a load away, you take a sip of lukewarm water from your tin flask and stare into the pitch black. You aren't just an adult hewer. You are a product of this darkness. Before the Mines and Collieries Act of 1842, children as young as 5 were sent down the pits. You were one of them. You started as a trapper. Your job was to sit in a small hole carved into the tunnel wall, beside a heavy wooden ventilation door. You sat in total, absolute darkness for 14 hours a day. When you heard the rumble of a coal tub approaching, you pulled a string to open the door, letting the tub pass, and then let it slam shut to maintain the mine's airflow. If you fell asleep, the airflow stopped, gas would build up, and the mine would explode. The lives of 300 men rested on your 7-year-old shoulders. The silence and the sensory deprivation were so profound that many trapper boys hallucinated, talking to phantoms in the dark. You survived the darkness by shutting off a part of your mind, a psychological amputation that allows you to lie in the dirt today without screaming. The physical exhaustion is a slow death, but the air you breathe can kill you in an instant. The Victorian coal mine is a chemical battleground. As you strike the coalface, you hear a faint hiss. Your blood runs cold. You immediately drop your pickaxe and look at your only source of light, the Davy lamp. In the early 19th century, miners used open flame candles, but coal seams naturally release methane gas, known to the miners as firedamp. It is colorless, odorless, and highly explosive. An open candle in a pocket of firedamp would trigger a catastrophic explosion, vaporizing everyone in the tunnel and bringing the roof down on the rest. The Davy lamp, enclosed in a fine metal mesh, was designed to prevent the flame from igniting the gas outside the lamp. To the Victorian public, it was hailed as a miracle of science that saved countless lives. But to you, the miner, the Davy lamp is a curse. Because the lamp allowed men to work in explosive environments, the mine owner simply pushed you deeper into more dangerous, gas-filled seams that were previously abandoned. You watch the small orange flame inside the wire mesh. If the flame begins to elongate and burn with a ghostly blue halo, you are surrounded by firedamp. One spark from your steel pickaxe striking a hard rock could ignite the tunnel. If the flame begins to shrink and sputter, you are surrounded by choke damp, carbon dioxide, or white damp, carbon monoxide. It will displace the oxygen, and you will simply fall asleep in the water and never wake up. Right now, the flame flickers with a slight blue tinge. The hissing gas is firedamp. But you do not evacuate. If you stop working, you don't get paid. You are paid purely by the tonnage of coal you extract, not by the hour. So you swallow your terror, adjust your position, and swing your pickaxe again, praying the iron doesn't strike a spark. By noon, your eyes are betraying you. The illumination provided by the Davy lamp is pathetic, roughly equivalent to a single firefly in a closet. After years of straining your eyes in the perpetual gloom, your eye muscles begin to fail. You develop a condition called miner's nystagmus. In the dim light, your eyeballs begin to twitch and oscillate uncontrollably. The tunnel walls seem to sway and spin. The headaches are blinding. When you emerge into the sunlight on Sundays, the brightness is so agonizing that you have to keep your eyes clamped shut, effectively leaving you blind even when you aren't underground. The darkness is claiming your body, adapting you to become a creature of the deep earth. You might ask, as anyone from the modern era would, why not leave? Why not find work in a factory or on a farm? Here is the brutal economic machinery that keeps you in the dark. The yearly bond. In many mining regions, you do not work week to week. You are forced to sign a bond, a legally binding contract tying you to a specific colliery for an entire year. If you try to leave, you are treated as a deserter, arrested, and thrown in prison. The truck system. Even worse is how you are paid. The coal owner doesn't just own the mine, he owns the village, your cottage, and the local Tommy shop, the company store. Instead of cash, you are often paid in company tokens, which can only be spent at the Tommy shop. The prices at the company store are marked up by 20% to 30%, and the quality of the food is abysmal. Adulterated flour, rotting meat, watered-down beer. The cycle of debt. If you are sick and cannot work, you must take out credit at the Tommy shop. By the end of the month, the deductions for rent, tool sharpening, lamp oil, and groceries completely wipe out your wages. You work 14 hours a day, risking explosion and cave-ins, and at the end of the week, you owe the company money. You are not a free man. You are a serf tied to a subterranean lord. It is 2 p.m. You are completely exhausted. Your hands are blistered and bleeding. The handles of your tools slick with your own sweat and grime. As you load another pile of coal for the putters, you hear a sound that freezes the marrow in your bones. It is a sharp, cracking sound, like a rifle shot. The sound isn't coming from the tunnel ahead. It's coming from the ceiling. The heavy wooden props, the pit props that hold up the millions of tons of earth above you, are groaning under shifting tectonic weight. In the Victorian mine, the ceiling is a living, breathing enemy. The miners call it the roof talking. When the roof talks, you listen. The cracking grows louder. Dust falls like dry rain from the slate above. The doctrine of the mine dictates that timber is expensive, but human life is cheap. The mine owner provides exactly enough timber to keep the mine operational, not a single piece more for your comfort or safety. You press your back against the coal face, holding your breath. In this moment, the illusion of human dominance over nature evaporates. All the steam engines, all the scientific advancements, all the wealth of the British Empire mean absolutely nothing. If that timber snaps, you will be crushed so flat that they won't even bother digging out your body. They will simply brick up the tunnel and open a new seam. You will become part of the geology. The cracking stops. The roof settles. You exhale a breath you didn't realize you were holding. You pick up your hammer and go back to work. There is no time to process the near-death experience. The coal must flow. At 6:30 p.m., the shift finally ends. Your entire body is a landscape of pain. Your spine is locked in a hunch. Your knees throb from kneeling in acidic water, and your lungs heave with a wet, rattling cough. You and the other hewers make the slow, agonizing trudge back to the pit bottom. The walk takes nearly an hour. No one speaks. There is no energy left for conversation. Your faces are completely masked in black dust. The whites of your eyes and the red rims of your lips, the only proof that you are human beings and not demons of the underworld. You crowd back into the iron cage. The winding engine squeals and you are pulled upward, rocketing toward the surface. When the cage finally breaches the surface, there is no brilliant sunshine to greet you. It is winter. The sun has already set. You left in the dark and you return in the dark. The only light comes from the flaming braziers of the pithead and the distant, glowing windows of the mine owner's manor on the hill. You walk the 2 miles home in the freezing wind, the sweat drying on your skin like a layer of frost. You will eat a meager meal of bread and weak tea, scrub the worst of the black grit from your face in a tin basin, and collapse into bed. In just 8 hours, the cycle will begin again. When we look back at the 19th century, we are taught to marvel at the sheer scale of progress. We look at the sprawling railways that connected continents, the massive steel-hulled ships that commanded the oceans, the brilliant gas lamps that pushed back the night in London streets, and the towering factories that mass-produced the modern world. But none of that, not a single piece of that magnificent Victorian machine, could move an inch without the black rock beneath the earth. And that rock did not mine itself. It was torn from the earth by the bare hands, the shattered lungs, and the broken spines of men and boys who lived their entire lives in the dark. The Industrial Revolution was not fueled by coal. It was fueled by human sacrifice. The wealth of the British Empire was built upon a foundation of unseen, disposable labor. So how long would you last? Perhaps you'd survive the first descent on pure adrenaline. Maybe you'd make it through the first week before the claustrophobia drove you mad. But eventually, the toxic air, the crushing geology, or the crushing debt of the company store would break you. You would become a ghost in the machine. When you look at antique brass fittings, vintage steam trains, or the elegant ironwork of the 1800s, do not just see the ingenuity of the engineers. See the darkness. Hear the crack of the pit props. Remember the men who swung pickaxes in 2-foot seams so that others could live in the light. Every era has its unseen foundation, the invisible hands that hold up the privileges of the present. If you felt the weight of that reality today, if you tasted the coal dust in the air of our historical exploration, then you understand the mission of this channel. At the Time Sleuth Hotel, we refuse to let the past be sanitized. We descend into the darkest shafts of history to pull the truth back to the surface. By subscribing and joining our ranks, you help us keep the Davy lamp lit. You ensure that the sacrifices of the forgotten are not buried forever under the bedrock of time. Hit the notification bell so you are ready when the next cage drops. Because here, we know that the true story of humanity isn't found in the light of the palaces, but in the shadows of the earth.